Hi everyone, I'm Victoria Racz and this is part 2 of my teaching demo for the All-Northwest oboe excerpts. Be sure to watch my first video for some basic recording tips and also musical advice on note selections. Now for this section. I'm so glad that this Bach excerpt from the St. Matthew Passion was chosen for this, as he composed so beautifully for our instrument. I made some markings that I think will assist. A good way to approach this is to envision this selection as a musical conversation. In the third measure, there is a slight subject change between the G and E flat, so bring that out with a subtle lift between those notes and consider changing to a softer dynamic to help mark the next topic of conversation. As with all music, be sure to follow the musical line with your dynamics. So dropping to a softer dynamic will assist one in crescendoing through each ascending 16th note pattern. For those of you who aren't sure how to execute the A flat to B flat trill, here's how. You play the A flat, and then you wiggle the middle finger of your left hand. Make it sound graceful. We don't need machine gun fingers for this, so just a couple wiggles should do the trick. I drew brackets around some of the eighth notes in the last two lines, and I did that because I think they sound like another voice in the conversation, so it's always fun to try to display those aspects to our audience. No matter how you do it, make a point to keep every tongued note perfectly symmetrical, as that is a standard style characteristic of Baroque music. I will alter the final note in some way, so no one will be tempted to use this for their own recording. Let's check the metronome marking. I have it set to 76. The final track for oboists is the short excerpt from the second movement of the Saint-Saens oboe sonata, a standard piece for our instrument. Unfortunately, someone chose to have this excerpt start mid-phrase, which is a bit disconcerting, but it does fit perfectly on the page, so there's that. Don't go any faster than the suggested tempo markings, as this entire movement is gentle and pastoral. Save the fireworks for the third movement when you work on that entire piece, as I hope you do. Concentrate on long phrases throughout to keep it from sounding choppy. As you begin working on this, subdivide to count it in 9 to ensure that the repeated pattern of the dotted 8s tied to the 16ths are precise and not triplety. Then feel the pulse in a gentle 3. I think one of the reasons this section was chosen was to test counting abilities, especially with the rests and syncopated patterns in the second and third lines. Be sure to shout out the rhythmic names of the rests in your head, so you don't play on those rests, and work diligently with your metronome before recording. Note that the accents are placed on the principal note, the F, and not the grace note G's, which should all be played in a peaceful and somewhat playful manner if you like. I will play the final note up an octave for the copyright purposes of this recording only. So now we've gotten to the final excerpt in the set, the one for those who also play English horn. Note the metronome marking. The 8th note gets the beat, so as you work on it, subdivide to count it in 6. When you've played it through that way a few times, I would suggest shifting the metronome marking to 60 to feel it in 3. Be sure that it sounds luxurious and sustained throughout. A few notes about this one. In measure 6, the last 3 8th notes should be tongued as long and sustained as you can make them. In measure 11, push your air between the B and high D to ensure that the D speaks. And of course, be sure to move your left first finger smoothly and efficiently off of the half-whole key without bouncing. Taper every phrase ending and keep your air singing through the end of each note to keep B's and C's from sagging. Those notes can be notorious for that on English horn, so you might try lightly clipping your reed if that is a problem, or try a different vocal if you're fortunate enough to have one. When you have the forte in the 5th measure, project that out as much as possible while maintaining a warm, focused tone, since Mr. Broad seems to want to test how softly one can play in the last line. The marking over the 2nd to last measure is a mordent, and the slash through it means that it is a downward mordent. Since there is a G sharp earlier in the measure, I have chosen to keep the G sharp in a lower octave as well. For the repeat, perhaps in the 2nd time through, I will do a bit more rubato here and there, but other than that, I want to keep all the musical elements consistent. As with the other excerpts, I will alter the final cadences on the 1st and 2nd times in some way that I'll decide when I get there. Let's check the metronome marking. I'm going to put it on the 60. So thank you for watching this video. I hope that it's helpful, and I'd love it if you left a comment expressing that. Remember that those listening to your video, they truly want you to succeed and play your very best. So go in with that mindset, that this entire process is designed for your talent and hard work to shine. Please feel free to contact me directly and email me your audition video if you wish, especially if you thought this was beneficial in any way. You can find me on the Oregon Chamber Players site and through the Northwest Oboe Seminar. If you live in this region, I hope to meet you someday at a concert, especially for the seminar, either as an audience member, auditor, or future participant. Happy playing!